Austin Andrews here with your Beacon. Today we take a look at election expectations of big city residents. As the polls open and Americans stream into voting booths all over the country, big city centers like Washington, D.C. are preparing for the election in some unique ways that reveal the reality for a United States is both harsh and upsetting. Major cities across the country have seen business owners board up their businesses, while several states have activated their National Guard. Unrest is feared from tonight's election results. Daily Wire's Tim Pierce helps describe the actions being taken in cities across the nation, talking first about what communities are bracing for.
That could depend on who wins. Historically, Republicans don't have the same capacity for mob violence over elections that Democrats do. The obvious exception is January 6th, and yes, it included violence against police, property damage, and dozens of arrests. But listeners should keep in mind that the violence that day wasn't directed at random businesses. That's just not their MO. On the other hand, if you remember back to former President Trump's victory in 2016, that set off riots across the country. Thousands of people protested, and shops in major cities were damaged and looted. Businesses in major cities from Washington, D.C. to Portland, Oregon have boarded up their windows. National Guard troops have been activated in Nevada, Oregon, and Washington state. Nevada's Republican Governor Joe Lombardo said that the National Guard troops would be limited to helping law enforcement secure polling places and directing traffic. Washington Governor Jay Inslee, a Democrat, cited Homeland Security warnings of threats to election infrastructure in his order activating the National Guard. In Washington, D.C., some businesses in downtown are boarding up, and authorities have erected fences around the White House and the vice president's residence. After the 2016 election, rioters set fires in San Francisco, burned Trump in effigy in Los Angeles, and rampaged through downtown D.C., resulting in hundreds of arrests. The George Floyd riots of 2020 became the most expensive riots in U.S. history. The insurance industry paid out somewhere between $1 and $2 billion to cover damages. January 6 cost somewhere around $30 million. For protests that are connected with the riot, there is a precedent for serious jail time. The Justice Department has prosecuted hundreds of people over January 6 and scored sentences as harsh as over 2 decades in prison. That said, in D.C. in 2016, hundreds of people were arrested, but not a single person was convicted. That wasn't because crimes weren't committed. They clearly were. But the activists charged over the damage coordinated their defenses to block prosecutors from building a case against any one activist. The activists themselves bragged about beating the Justice Department after the fact. Likewise, the George Floyd riots were largely supported by the media and many institutions, which provided cover for the rioters. Even hundreds of medical experts made excuses for mass gatherings over Floyd that they would not condone for any other reason.
So if the past is followed, then we will likely see rioting over a Trump victory to be unpunished as opposed to rioting on Trump's behalf, which will be punished to the nth degree. Again, we don't know what the results will be, and it's unlikely that we'll know the results of the election tonight. There are many specific states, such as swing states, that are warning the country to be prepared to not know for several days. As such, this election result may be drawn out over the course of many days as the country collectively holds its breath, each side concerned about what the other might do. I'm Austin Andrews, and I'll see you on the next report.